Welcome to another episode of the Silver BlackCast. It's your brother Marquise here with your boy Rocco and our on-air producer, the medical marvel himself, Dr. O. We're just a group of die-hard Raider fans here trying to bring you a little bit of insights and passion straight from the black hole. Every episode, we're going to break down into four segments, just like four downs on a football field. On first down, we're going to talk about the news, the notes, what's hot, what's happening in Raider Nation. On second down, we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the additions we made on the defensive side of the ball, as well as some of the subtractions. And on third down, we're going to take a deep dive into Rocco's mind, and trust me, anything can happen in there. And fourth down, where we never punt on your questions, you bring the heat and we'll bring the answers. So gear up, Raider Nation. Smash that like and subscribe button. It's another episode of the Silver and Black Cast. Let's get it. All right, Rocco, Dr. O, you guys ready to get rolling?
Ready, locked and loaded, baby.
All right, Raider Nation. Let's take this ride together. So first off, we're going to start off with some of the news and notes. First down. So obviously, the biggest news and notes is OTAs getting started for the rookies. On just happened on Thursday, and they're going to be having some practices. What are you looking for to hear from that, Rocco?
Well, I don't know that we'll hear much. I don't think there's any media availability. But it's a good, you know, almost week for the rookies to get acclimated to training camp starting before the veterans get there, and as tradition, and hopefully they could get off to a fast start once the veterans get there and camp really gets underway.
Yeah, I think the biggest news you hope not to hear is just about no injuries. I guess no news is good news when it comes to the rookie training camp. The other big news is we had two other items that were kind of bigger news, and it's finally got the signing of Jack Besh. Rocco, to your credit, you on the last episode, rookies were not signed. What gave you the confidence to feel that, hey, this is going to get done and there's not going to be any kind of holdout?
Just the experience of the way the league operates. In recent years, it's not when you say holdout. Those are rare in today's day and age, as far as a rookie is concerned. I knew once, at the higher end of the second round, once that log jam was broken and one or two guys signed, then it would just all fall in line from there. And that's basically what happened, and I'm glad it did.
Yeah, I mean, none of us wanted Jack Besh to miss the beginning of training camp, especially Jack Besh. I mean, if he's going to be competing for a starting role, he needs to get as many reps as possible. The biggest news of the training camp thus far, and I don't know if it's really a surprise, but it is the news that Christian Wilkins was actually put on the PUP list. Why don't you break that down for us? What does that mean for Raider Nation? I want to get an optimistic point of view, Rocco, because most of Raider Nation, they see that Christian Wilkins on PUP and the sky is falling. So can you walk these guys off the ledge for us?
Well, obviously it's concerning, but I don't think it's to the surprise of anyone. He counts as a roster spot during training camp, even though he's on the PUP list, which is fine. We have the large rosters at this point in time, so that's perfectly fine. And he could be taken off at any time during camp if he's healthy and ready to go and start practicing, which we all hope for. I think, as Dr. O talked about last week, I think they're taking a smart, conservative, slower approach, keeping the long-term, totality of the season in mind. And time will tell. I believe Ian Rappaport did report that he has made progress in recent weeks, some good progress. So that gives me hope if you're looking for hope. And then time will tell. We got a long training camp. It's still a ways away till the season begins. If he goes on the PUP when the season begins, then yes, he has to miss the first 4 games of the season. Hopefully that's not the case. We would love to have him suited up week 1 in New England. Worst case scenario, I got to imagine that would be the worst case scenario. And even that, if you look at a 17-game schedule, if you could get him back, worst case scenario, week 5, fully healthy, ready to go. I think eventually, hopefully, week 1, week 5, we're going to have a healthy Christian Wilkins.
I would like to add. I would like to add that, considering the fact, let's say, worst case scenario, 4 or 5 weeks into the season, could be a good way to kind of tame the lion to not allow himself to be kind of productive to himself. Some individuals, they just have the motor and they just go. So if if the trainers notice that he's going to push himself too hard, too fast, and potentially create a setback, they're probably just trying to help him get himself in the right position in a good time frame to be 100%. So this might be a good thing overall if you're thinking about the entire season. It's probably a good way to go.
Well, let me ask you this: Is it, knowing, having some background on the injury, Doctor O? Is it
Mhm.
concerning to you the fact that we are 9 going on 10 months out from this injury and he is still not ready?
Yes, but it is a very annoying injury. And again, everything kind of passes through from that area all the way upwards. All the force production is definitely coming from the feet. So again, I say, these individuals are athletes. They're specimens. So relatively speaking, they tend to heal faster. So unless there's no issue in reference to circulation into the area, a reduction or reduced circulation into the area that's going to compromise the overall healing, um, it's probably the best case scenario. So I'd like to be optimistic in reference to this scenario. Only time will tell. So as we go later on into training camp, I'd say late August and so on and so forth, he should be doing some things. Hopefully, not too much pressure from outside forces. Just getting his body to really be able to control itself and feel comfortable, and have him being able to trust the foot and having that foot to be ready for complete explosion. That will be the true test. That will let us know where he is at that point. But I think overall, kind of taking the pressure off during the preseason. I mean, during training camp is probably the best case scenario right now for that kind of injury.
Last question before we move on to segment two, second down. Um, is this the type of injury where you'd be concerned of it happening again, or once he's back, Raider Nation should be confident that he's going to be back for the long haul?
Yes, it's one of those injuries again. Like it's a nagging injury. So we had it from last year, and it's still nagging right now. So potentially, yes, it could be something that could hamper throughout the year, and that's where the management really comes in. So if and when he does return back to the game, I wouldn't put him full tilt, 100% for the entire game, every down, so on and so forth. We got to integrate him back into the game, put him in. Put him in during situational where he can be the most useful and beneficial, and manage and keep track after every set of downs. Every quarter, manage his time. So maybe abbreviate him and start him off at 20-25% of his typical time, just to kind of get things through. After the first game, reassess the whole situation and see how you're doing. You compare gameplay to self-reporting, how he's feeling and so on and so forth. Again, with these kind of individuals, they just go. They're used to going through pain. And when you do that, sometimes you push yourself over the edge to the point where you're no longer useful to the team. So, being able to manage that, very, very important.
All right, Raider Nation. So that takes us to the end of the first down, and now we're going to go to second down, where we're going to discuss our defensive additions, subtractions, and what our overall view of this side of the ball is. So, Rocco, let's start with the people we lost. Because obviously we had a lot of turnover on that side of the ball this year. You're a person who's very confident, especially in our coordinators and our defensive minded head coach. So, how are you feeling overall before we get into these subtractions? Overall, about where the defense is at as far as the roster is concerned.
I feel good. This will actually lead into my topic when we get to the segment where Rocco's thoughts, but I think we're going to be really good on defense. When you talk about additions and subtractions, all things being equal, I would have liked to have had, a couple of these guys back. And I'm sure Spytek and Carroll feel that way as well. But, and I'm not saying anything that's not obvious. It's all about value and um, how you're allocating, cap space and what makes the most sense, not just building the defense, but the overall roster construction.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think as Raider fans and just fans in general, we tend to overvalue our own players, and we tend to get almost blind loyalty to certain players as opposed to having a rational thought process of saying, "Hey, this guy is good. Just because we lost him doesn't mean we can't replace him." So let's briefly talk about a few of these people, and then we'll definitely talk about their salaries and why we lost them. The biggest names that we lost starting in our secondary start was Nate Hobbs, who went to Green Bay for 4 years, $48 million. I'm going to reference a lot of the PFF ratings, not because I think that they're the end all be all, but I do think that they are a common thread and easy to relate one player to another because they have the same they use the same metrics. So Nate Hobbs was ranked 110 out of 222, so right in the middle of a middling cornerback with a PFF grade of 61.4 and a coverage grade of 61.5. So to me, he was an average cornerback when healthy, and he got a $12 million annual cost. Rocco.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. And, you know, our priority right now is this upcoming season. It's right around the corner. We all want to win. And when I talk about roster construction and how you allocate the salary, cap space that you have, it's in reference to this year, but it's also with an eye on the future. It's next year, the year after that. So I saw Hobbs, this year he counts 5.9 million against the cap, right? That's pretty reasonable. But then next year it goes up to 13, then 14, then 14.7. I think Hobbs is a solid player. He was hurt quite often. I'm not one to hold that against him. I don't know that that necessarily means he's any more likely to be hurt in the future. You know how I feel about that. I always thought he was a solid nickel that I was always waiting to quite, couldn't quite get over the hump where it really became a difference maker. To me, never quite got there. I understand not matching that deal and letting him walk.
Well, I agree with all that. Dr. O, I want you to chime in here. Do you tend to see that people who are injured often, if they're very different injuries, not the same injury over and over again, they have a higher likelihood to re-injure or just get injured again, or is this just a crapshoot?
I'd like to say it's a crapshoot, but unfortunately, I've noticed that individuals who get injured, different types of injuries, we just have to label them as injury prone. Now, that also depends on their approach to the game, variability of training and workout exercises, the intensity, also the thought process, and how well these individuals take care of their bodies. It's not just about what you do on the field or what you do in the training room, training facility, but it's also about what you put into your body as well. Some individuals started introducing different nutrition and so on and so forth, and research shows that these have been getting good results. And you've seen over the past 10 years where nutrition and how to eat has been working. There's other things we can get into another time where individuals are introducing, which might have some questionable legalities to it. However, individuals are using it in the off season for recovery. Kind of speeding up the recovery, speeding up the growth, and just trying to be as healthy as possible in order to be able to produce. So, in reference to the initial question, individuals who have injuries and might have ankle one day and knee another day, or so on and so forth, I have to think of it as one. The system just can't handle the heavy workload. I mean, you football. I mean, you're the biggest, strongest, fastest in the world. And two, we have to factor in training and approach towards the game. You might notice in previous years there might be certain teams that tend to have a few more injuries than others,
That was
and
us.
other.
That was us last year.
So we have to factor in those things. Why is that happening? Is it just the turf? Is it just the ground? Is it the thought process and the training regimen? Is it how the strength and conditioning coaches approaching the treatment or therapy overall? A lot of individuals don't realize all that goes in behind the scenes, not just the coaches and not just the players. We're talking about staff. We're talking about therapy. We're talking about the doctors. Some players will fly 1,200 uh, miles across state just to go to a specific doctor because they trust that individual, and that individual has great experience with whatever it is they might have. So there's a lot to factor in. So I don't want to say simple, but if there's a trend, it cannot be ignored.
And so, and that leads to what you were saying, Rocco. It's just hard to sit there and pay him those salaries year in and year out when you don't know how much he's going to be on the field. Now, what I do think that the Raiders did a great job is by every person they lost, I thought they got a equitable player for a much cheaper salary. So the Raiders lost Nate Hobbs at an annual salary of 12 million a year, and they replaced him with first round draft pick Eric Stokes with a 1 year $4 million deal. Who in his time last year, where Nate Hobbs was ranked 110 out of 222, he was 112 with a 62.4 cover grade and 61.3 overall grade based on PFF. So he was an equitable player. Statistically and rating wise by PFF was almost identical type of player, but got a $40 million year as opposed to 12 million. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about Eric Stokes?
Well, I like Stokes. He's got that pedigree, good college player, highly drafted, and I think he's going to be in the competition to start out outside. I wanted to mention, I thought it was interesting. We actually, in preparing for this, we actually re-signed Darnay Holmes. There's a lot of questions about Nickelback. He's penciled in at the moment. There's going to be competition there. I think you might see a guy like Thomas Harper, other candidates. We might get creative with some three safety sets, but he's penciled in there. And I did find it interesting that Pete Carroll and the new regime, they didn't just inherit him. They made a point to re-sign him, telling me that they're higher on him than maybe what the perception is out there. I trust Pete Carroll in that regard.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And that's just what we have to do. You got a defensive-minded head coach. You got a good defense coordinator, Patrick Graham. You have to trust that these guys are going to bring in the type of guys that they think they can win with and be successful with. Which leads us to one of the people that the Raider Nation lost, where we were and Raider Nation was distraught over, and that was losing Robert Spillane, our middle linebacker, who as a player was really good for 2 years with the Raiders, but even more so, he kind of embodied from a personality standpoint, a workmanship, a blue collar attitude that Raider Nation kind of really bought into and loved. And now he's gone to New England for a 3 year, $33 million deal, 11 million annually. And what do you think about that loss, Rock?
Yeah, I think everything you said about him is true. Overall, to me, and we'll touch on each guy. To me, Malcolm Koonce was the number one priority to bring back. My opinion, Hobbs and Morik were, with all due respect, kind of the classic case of pretty good to good players getting overpaid on the free agency market. To me, Spillane is very good. I believe he's a very good player. I believe he is one of the better middle linebackers in the NFL. So to me, this isn't as much as Spillane himself. This is the positional value, right? I think we're going to agree on this. Very good player, one of the better players at his position. Everything you said about him is true. It's just that position, off-ball linebacker. If there's any position on the defense or really the whole team where you're going to be more conservative and you allocate your cap space, most teams are going to take the position of this is where you save, and I agree with that. I think you could still be a very good defense while being solid at that middle linebacker, off the ball linebacker type of position. So to me, this is more so about the position value than Spillane himself.
Yeah, and to not to discredit anything that Robert Spillane did, but let's be real when it comes to this. I mean, Robert Spillane was signed for a bag of chips and a Coke, and Patrick Graham put him in a situation. He empowered him and put him in a defense where he could be really, really successful. And not I don't want to take away from Spillane, but there's no reason to believe that Patrick Graham can't take another middle linebacker, especially one like with the skins on the wall, Landon Roberts, who we replaced Spillane with. Who actually, from a PFF grade, was rated significantly higher. Landon Roberts was the 22nd rated linebacker out of 189 with a 77.2 overall grade, and a and you know although he was in that Pittsburgh defense, so he was in a 3-4. He was very impactful. He's a very physical linebacker, and we got him for a 1 year, $3 million deal, netting about $8 million between him and Robert Spillane.
Yeah, I think you can make the argument he may be better against the run than Spillane. I think he might give you a little bit more of a nasty edge, a little more physicality in the middle of your defense. Coverage, we'll see. And maybe that means he comes off the field on third downs and Graham gets creative, with different players, whether it's Devin White more so as a blitzer, Jeremy Chinn in the box. There's different things we could do if that really is a liability. But as far as a replacement, when you're talking about, $3 million against the cap as opposed to nine, it makes sense.
Yeah, let me tell you something, Raider Nation. If you have not listened to the press conferences of Landon Roberts, then you're missing out on some great, great, great audio, because this guy here makes you want to run through a wall. This guy here talks about how he wakes up every morning because he's excited about the opportunity. As he gets older, he understands that they're not given, they're not always available. So he's just really appreciative and hungry. And I think that Raider Nation is really going to fall in love with him as a player, similarly to how they did with Denzel Perriman and Robert Spillane. And as I keep going through this list, it's clear that Patrick Graham has the ability to take these middle linebackers and really make them successful players.
Yeah.
The next big loss we had was Trayvon Merrick. And Trayvon Merrick was our starting safety. We drafted him in the second round. It's safe for 2 years. But you know what? And he was a good player. But this guy signed a 3-year, $51 million deal with the Carolina Panthers, $17 million a year. And Mike, Rocco, I think you touched on it before that he's a good player, but $17 million.
Yeah.
We did replace. Oh, go ahead,
No,
Rocco.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, yeah, like I said, I think, he's a nice young player. He's now the sixth highest paid safety in the league. So is that an overpay? I don't want to just knock these guys now that they left. I wish them all the luck in the world. Unless they're playing against us, then I don't. But I don't want to kill these guys. But is he the sixth best safety in the league? I think that's very debatable. Jeremy Chinn, who we replaced him with, is the 22nd highest paid safety. So all these things, as you can see, it's all about value.
And to go along with what you were just saying, I mean, according to PFF, based on their coverage and run stopping rate, he was rated the 58th overall safety. 58th, but he's paid like the sixth, whereas Jeremy Chinn was ranked as the 50th safety. So based on PFF, they thought that Jeremy Chinn was a better player.
I'll say, excuse me, I just wanted to say I didn't think Merrick actually played his best until last season. Graham started using him closer to the line of scrimmage in the box. He really came into his own in that role. Give him credit, but guess what? That's what Jeremy Chinn does best as well. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. More goes from, he counts $7 million against the cap this year, then goes up to 21, then 22.5. So again, it's not just this year; it's next year, the year after. So these are all difficult business decisions, but you have to be smart.
Yeah, and we're going to go through a few more of these. We'll try to get through some of these other ones a little quicker. We have Divine Diablo, who we lost for 2 years, $14 million to Atlanta Falcons. He's another guy who was hurt often with the Raiders, where he showed signs of brilliance and also showed signs of futility. So to me, he was replaced for $7 million deal with a guy named Jermaine Pratt. who signed a 1-year, $4.25 million deal. And again, Jermaine Pratt, once again, rated higher by PFF than the guy we're replacing that got paid a lot more money. Divine Diablo was ranked 133rd out of 189 linebackers, where Jermaine Pratt was 111th. So
I
again,
like PFF guys.
seems like an upgrade for less money.
Those guys are smart. Those PFF guys. I like them.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
give you a lot of numbers. I don't know what they mean, but I know the higher number means you're worse.
Yeah, to me, this is, Diablo, nice player, kind of, almost similar to Hobbs, maybe not to quite the same extent, but just every time you kind of thought he was turning a corner when he was showing signs of promise, it never consistently happened. Solid starter, but Pratt just as good, maybe I would argue better football player. So no, kind of all due respect, kind of no brainer there.
Yeah, and the last person we'll really dive into as far as additions, we'll mention a couple other guys, but the last guy I really want to spend time talking about is a guy who signed for another linebacker who signed for a 1-year, $1.1 million deal, and Devin White, who not too long ago was considered to be one of the best linebackers in the league, still only 27 years old, and super explosive, was a top 5 pick in the draft. In fact, many of Raider Nation wanted to draft him instead of Cleveland Farrell in the top 5 of the draft. And we get this guy again for $1.1 million, which in football terms, that's nothing.
Yeah, it's worth a flyer. Everything you said is true. I know he struggled quite a bit in recent years. I will say Spytech was with him in Tampa Bay when he was at his best. And, whatever has happened the last few years with him, Spytech has, a history with him, has an intimate knowledge with him. And he brought him in, I think, in a smaller role, whether it's blitzing, a specialized role. I think, he could be effective. Surely worth a flyer.
Absolutely, and there's a couple of guys I just want to mention as far as some losses that we did also occur was losing Marcus Epps to New England for 1 year, $4 million, and Clavon Chase and also to the New England. So they're going to be soon called the New England Raiders by adding up Robert Spillane, Marcus Epps, and Clavon Chase on, who had a really good, strong finish of the year for us last year. Some other additions that the Raiders made to that defense, formerly of Arizona, Jalen Smith, former second-round pick and former really good linebacker for Dallas Cowboys, trying to reinvent himself and re-energize his career as he was out of football for the last year and a half. Rocco, do you have anything you want to add on to those guys?
I would say I like how we re-signed Palomau early. I think before even free agency kicked off, we re-signed him. I spoke about him before. He's a guy I've always been high on. Marcus Epps, solid player. I think Palomau has a lot more upside and could be more of a playmaker. I like that move. I love re-signing Adam Butler. To me, it all starts up front. Adam Butler, underrated player, good pass rush, does a lot of dirty work, on twists, on games, on stunts. He's doing that dirty work, probably deserves a lot of assists for, some of the Crosby sacks, for some of the Koonce sacks and that type of thing. So, yeah, I just wanted to touch on those two guys, but I like what we did.
Yeah, I mean those re-signings were huge. But one of the biggest ones that you omitted also from re-signing was re-signing Malcolm Koonce, who you said a little bit earlier, and re-signing Malcolm Koonce, re-signing Powell Mao. You got two young guys who are really, really impactful. Malcolm Koonce obviously missed all the 24 with a ACL injury. which is pretty common practice nowadays. I guess Dr. O could attest to the ACLs happen all the time now. But this is a guy in 23 that had 8 sacks in the last 9 games and forced 3 forced fumbles. So he's a very impactful pass rusher. Palomau, as you alluded, you are a huge fan of this guy. I'm telling you, when this guy was an undrafted rookie coming into camp, Rocco was already telling me that this guy, they're going to find a package for this guy and him be impactful. And it took him a couple years to get there, but now he's a very impactful player for the Raiders, and now he's going to get his first real full-time shot as a starter. And Adam Butler is, to me, Mr. Underrated. When it comes to the Raiders team, after Jakobi Meyers on offense, you have Adam Butler on defense, who probably is a very underrated player in this league. I mean, you're talking about a guy for the last 3 or 4 years as the defensive tackle has had 5 and 6 sacks every year. You might as well write that down and pin that you could just already know Adam Butler is going to get you a handful of sacks from that interior pass rush position. So, which is extremely valuable. So, I think they prioritize those guys, and for good reason. The last thing we want to touch on is to finish this defense off. The Raiders also were pretty heavy-handed in the draft. They added in the 3rd round, Darian Porter, cornerback. 4th round, Tonka Hemingway, defensive tackle. In 5th round, J.J. Pegues, defensive tackle. And in the 7th round, Cody Lindenberg, linebacker. So they also added a few pieces in the draft as well to try to round out that defense. You want to chime in on any of those draft picks?
Yeah, I think Porter, freak athlete, incredible measurables. I like, in the OTAs, and we'll see with training camp right around the corner, a lot of the reports was he's getting a lot of first-team reps already. I think Pete Carroll sees tremendous upside in him. Converted wide receiver, didn't play a lot of corner, but has huge upside. I think, Pete Carroll thinks he can mold him. Pete Carroll's not afraid to play young players, so Darian Porter could be a day 1 starter. So, I'll touch on that. I like the 2 defensive tackles. Could get in the rotation. Pegues could maybe find a role on offense as well.
Right? Oh, Dr. O, you're going to love this guy.
We're talking about defense.
Pounds, runs the football as well as a defensive tackle. He's like a skinny Jerome Bettis out there. Yeah, I mean, obviously these guys are day 2 and day 3 picks. So, you hope they don't get on the field too often or too soon. But, but I do think there's going to be an opportunity. I think Pete Carroll really does enjoy playing young players and does connect with them. So they're going to have an opportunity to get out there and compete. Well, that takes us out of 2nd down and leads us to 3rd down. Rocco, your thoughts for the day. What do you got for us?
Okay, so we're talking defense. My thoughts are prediction. I'm going to go ahead and predict the Raiders have a top 10 defense this season.
Wow.
Yeah. Bold prediction. You're saying, wow. So bold prediction because it's shockingly, we've been shockingly consistently bad on defense for many, many, many years. And I know you get excited when I talk stats, I talk numbers, Marquise. You're not going to get excited about this, though. You actually might want to leave the room. This is where we rank defensively as far as points. You didn't actually have to leave the room, Marquise. You can come back. Here's our final ranking. Real quick. I'm not even going to go through it all because it's too painful. Where we finished ranked defensively in points per game. Okay? Here we go. Last year, 25th. 2023, 9th. Okay, so now this is the one bright spot, and this is part of why I'm optimistic about this season. I'll come back to this. But 2022, 26th. 2021, 26th. 2020, 30th. 2019, 24th. 2018, 32nd, dead last. Okay, and I'll stop there.
I'm trying to wait for the shiny outlook, the silver lining here. You're pressing me over here.
I'll get to that now. I was going to continue, but I'll get to that now. I completely understand. So 2023 finished ninth. Okay. And actually, the second half of the season, after Pierce took over for McDaniels, we were actually number one in the league in points per game the second half of the season, right? And it's almost forgotten. This time last year, there were very high expectations for the Raiders defense, and they underachieved. And there's many reasons for that: poor tackling, extreme lack of creating turnovers. They need to play a lot better, and I believe they will. But I also have two other reasons for you. One, the offense did them no favors, and that's an understatement. They consistently, time and time again, put them in bad position. I believe our offense will be much, much better this year. Give the defense a better opportunity to play good complementary football, right? Number two, and I hate even bringing this up, we have already a little bit injuries. Marquise knows I don't like to talk about injuries because they happen. They will happen this year, and you have to overcome them. There's no excuse. With that said, last year I believe we had an abnormal amount of injuries. I got to believe we'll be luckier in that regard this year. Starting number one with Max Crosby, heart and soul of the defense, played last year with a high ankle sprain. Pretty amazing that he played as much as he did, and actually played at a pretty damn high level, but not the game-wrecking, dominating Max Crosby we know and love. He's back 100% healthy, new contract, 100% bought into the Pete Carroll regime. Pair him with, as you said, Malcolm Koonce, who I believe by far was the number one priority to bring back as a re-signing. And in my mind, it's almost not even a re-signing, it's an addition. He didn't play a snap last year. So now Koonce, Crosby, to me, that's the biggest reason why we finished so strong in 2023, those two getting after the quarterback. I'm going to bank on Christian Wilkins being healthier earlier in the season than not. We get to see the three of them on the field for the first time. They didn't play a snap together last year. We talked about Butler. Tyree Wilson slowly, getting better, quietly getting a little bit better and better. Should be better this year with Robbie Leonard coaching him up. And I'm not giving up hope that at some point he takes a leap, similar to how Koonce took a leap. So front four, I think, could be very formidable. And to me, it all starts right there. We touched on some of the other players quickly. Let me get to the coaching staff. I love the continuity, bringing back Patrick Graham, really good coach. This will now be year 4 as our DC. That is a very long time in today's NFL, right? Not just Patrick Graham. We bring back Robbie Leonard. For my money, best defensive line coach in the NFL. I'm harping on the front. I think that's where it starts on defense. I think we'll have one of the better front fours, one of the better defensive lines in the league. Robbie Leonard also, we added running game coordinator to his title, okay? Pair them with some new assistants that Pete Carroll brought in, some new voices. I particularly like the hiring of Joe Woods as the defensive game, passing game coordinator. Well-respected coach. He's been a defensive coordinator multiple times in the league. He'll be working closely with Marcus Robertson, another well-respected defensive backs coach. With all that said, the number one addition for the defensive coaching staff, obviously Pete Carroll himself. Defensive head coach, all-time great defensive coach, built the legendary Legion of Boom. Can't wait to see what he and Patrick Graham come together with, what the scheme looks like. But I just think we're going to be, as all Pete Carroll defenses are, ultra competitive, tough, smart, disciplined, play fast, and that's my prediction. I believe the defense we thought and we were hoping we were going to be last year, and it didn't happen. I think that will come to fruition this year.
And what metric are you going by? You're going by only points per game? You're going
you could take your choice. For this, I use points per game, which I know, there's no, you're the stats guy, and this is why I'm not the stats guy. There's no perfect way to look at it. I know special teams is involved with that, offense is involved with that, but the name of the game is keeping the score as low as possible when you're playing defense. So I went with that, but I just think, for the first time in a long time, outside of 2023, I think, 1 year removed, we're going to kind of pick up where we left off the second half of 2023, and I think we're going to be very strong on defense this year.
Well, I'll tell you, Mike, Rocco, there's not a lot of people that are going to buy into that But I'm on board.
Perfect.
So,
That's
and
how
I
I
hope
like.
that if you're right on that, then you can go ahead and spike the ball, brother. You spike the ball, man. Top 10 on defense with all this turnover, man. If that's the case, then the Raiders are a playoff team because I got all the confidence in the world that Chip Kelly will figure out all those weapons on offense. So if we can get a top 10 defense. Hell, if we can even get a middling defense, in my opinion, I think you're talking about a playoff team. So I hope you're right, Rocco. And Lord knows, Raider Nation, when you read through those numbers, we've seen a lot of bad defense over the last decade. So we deserve a good season here. And I do agree that we do have the personnel to do it. That leads us to the fourth down. Your questions, ladies and gentlemen. Doctor, what do we got in the mailbag?
All right, so first question. Here we go. Can Max Crosby and Malcolm Koonce form one of the most dynamic pass rushing duos in the NFL season?
Yes.
Rocco, that's right up
I,
your alley. Go ahead.
I just talked about it. They were wrecking games the second half of 2023. Think Kansas City on Christmas Day. Um, that we were playing at a really high level on defense those last 7, 8, 9 games, and to me, it started with them. Um, they're back. They're both back healthy now, and yeah, that's exactly what I'm banking on when I say top 10 defense. It starts with those two.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that can derail those guys is not an offensive tackle, not offensive guard, it's not scheme, it's not double teaming, it's health. That's the only thing that's going to stop those guys. Um, you know, and that goes not only for those two, but Christian Wilkins. I mean, we have a season, and you alluded to it that we have three of our major impactful defensive linemen, three out of the four starters, are all coming off season-ending injuries. And so we hope that all three of them are able to get back to 100% and start the season off right. And if they do, then sky's the limit. There's no reason to believe that they're not going to be one of the best pass rush groups in all of the NFL for sure.
Great.
All right. Okay, so next question. What role will rookie players play in the 2025 season? Which one will make the biggest impact early on?
I'll take it. I mean, the biggest impact is going to be Genti.
Yeah,
I don't,
clearly.
I don't, I don't think there's much debate there. I just would. I wanted to speak first. I just wanted to make the overall point. I think as a group, and time will tell who it is, but I think as a group they will make a bigger impact than expected. And I just believe it's a good group first and foremost, and I attribute a lot of that to Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's not afraid to play young players, and I think these guys are going to play. They're going to play early, and they're going to have to make an impact.
Yeah, well, Rocco took the easy answer with Genti, so I'll go a little bit more in the weeds a little bit, and I'm going to go with Dante Thornton, the wide
Yes,
receiver. You know,
yes.
I don't think that, and I'm not sitting there saying the guy's going to put up 1,000 yards and have 15 touchdowns. But, I liken him, and we've had this conversation, Rocco, but I've likened him to Martavis Bryant, just a guy who's 6'4", 6'5", and can
The white
fly,
tiger.
the white tiger.
White
And,
tiger.
we're talking about when you say Dante Thornton, and Dr. O, you'll appreciate some metrics. We're talking about a guy who's 6'5", who ran a 4.3 flat. And so he is a specimen. So all you need this guy to catch is 30 balls for with 20 plus yards average, and get 7 or 8 touchdowns to go with it. And he just hit the threat of his speed changes the game for guys like Ashton Genti, changes the game for guys for a wide receiver group, a group of pass catchers that quite frankly are all very good, but all very similar games. Similar, you talk about a guy like Jakobi Meyers, Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers, Jack Besh. All those guys are short to intermediate route runners, and good after the catch. But they got Dante Thornton is the one that's going to be able to spread the field for them and allow guys like Ashton Genti to run, and allow guys like Jakobi Meyers to take over the middle of the field and those 7, 8, 10 yard routes. So I think he'll make the biggest impact. Maybe not statistically, but as a part of the offense, I think he's going to make the biggest impact, other than Ashton Genti.
All right. Okay, so how will the Raiders wide receiver group perform in 2025? And can the Raiders be proficient in this area with the absence of Devontae Adams, one of the top wide receivers in the league?
Yeah, they can. Jakobi Meyers, most underrated player in the NFL. Um,
How many passes did he drop last year, Mike?
as many as I did. And I have really good hands. Zero drops last year. Um, just for me, I would much rather that type of receiver, no diva. All due respect, Devontae, no diva. Maybe doesn't give you as many. He's not the spectacular guy. He might not take the top off the defense and make the spectacular plays, but he's not dropping any 3rd and 8s either. He's catching everything that's reasonably, within his catch radius, contested, just great hands, super dependable. Um, to me, he's like a one, maybe a 1B, paired with Bowers, who's a 1A. And if we're going to talk about receivers, we have to talk about Bowers. I understand he's a tight end, but he's our number one receiver. So with Bowers, Mayer, Marquise talked about Thornton. I think he is a key. I also think Trey Tucker could do a lot of those same type of things Marquise is talking about. The rookie Beck, who we just got in. So yeah, I think they're going to be very efficient, and we finally got a quarterback that can consistently get them the ball.
And I think that was the point there that the biggest point that you just touched on there. Now I don't think we have a prototypical number one wide receiver, but let's be honest, there's only probably about 10 of those in the league anyway. So most teams don't. But what we do have is an accurate quarterback, a quarterback that could play anywhere from top 8 to top 15 football regularly, consistently. And we have a play caller in Chip Kelly who can take advantage of the Brock Bowers, who, yes, tight end, but he's a receiver. Take advantage of what Jakobi Meyers and Trey Tuckers and Dante Thorntons and Jack Beshes. What do those guys do well? And he could take advantage of all that and make couple that together, make a nice little meal out of those guys, and be able to have an effective wide receiver group. Now, it may not be the group that strikes fear into the defense, but you know what? You don't have to sit there. You look at guys like the Puka Nakuas and stuff like that, and you say, hey, this guy right away doesn't sit there strike fear into you. But then the way that McVay uses them, coupled with his skill set, all of a sudden you look at the end of the day and Puka's got 150 yards. And so I think that Chip Kelly can do the same for many of our wide receivers, and maybe even be able to rotate, switch it around. You don't know which receiver is going to be killing you each day.
All right. Okay. All right. So next question. What challenges will the Raiders face in terms of depth, and which positions might need reinforcements as the seasons progress?
Well, depth's always an issue for every team. Because as Rocco alluded earlier, there's going to be injuries, and you just got to hope that the next man up mentality is effective. If you ask me which group I'm most concerned about, it's got to be one of two for me. But I'm going to go with with defensive line. I think that our depth at defensive line is adequate. However, I do think that there is a huge drop off between the Max Crosbys and the Charles Snowdens. A huge drop off between the Christian Wilkins and the Jonah Lalus. Huge drop offs between the Malcolm Koonces and even the Tyree Wilsons. So you have three guys who are, again, as I mentioned, coming off season ending injuries the year before, who are who are stars. They're significantly better than the people backing them up. And of course they are, because they're so good. It's hard you can't have anybody better than them backing them up, or they'll be starters. So to me, that's the biggest concern, because our depth is okay there. I'd like to see us add another defensive end personally, but I think we're so young at some of those positions, especially defensive tackle and things like that. Whereas if one of those three starters, or if, God forbid, multiple of those three starters are out long term, then it's going to be a big drop off to the rest of that team.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. My hope there is that, I have a lot of belief in Robbie Leonard. I think he gets the most out of everyone, and I'm hoping he'll get the most out of those depth pieces, like he has in the past. To to give you another one, maybe wide receiver, like we just talked about. If you were to lose, God forbid, a Bowers, a Myers, you might be in a little bit of trouble there. But I think the depth is pretty solid all throughout the roster, all things being equal. Like Marquise said, nobody, I don't think in any GM's heart of hearts, they're 1,000% confident in their depth at every position. I think that's just impossible. Um, but I think our depth is better than what it's been in the past, and I think it's pretty solid, all in all.
All right. Okay. So, final question: can the Raiders finally find consistency in their game in their quarterback play, or will the QB position continue to be a revolving door?
I'll take this one first, Rocco. I think that's a no-brainer. I think Geno Smith is very underrated as a quarterback, probably because of his years of as a backup and his struggle first couple years. But obviously, he was not in a good situation with the Jets. So I do. Sorry, Doctor O. Uh, I do think that position is going to be fulfilled, and it could be longer than people think. People see his age, but quarterbacks are playing longer. He sat for a long time. The wear and tear on his bones is not as much as a normal 35-year-old, and you may end up having a quarterback for the next 5 years.
I could not agree more. And I think this will probably be Rocco's thoughts next episode. But yeah, I think it's almost underappreciated, the acquisition of Geno Smith. And I'll save some of it for next episode. But our
There's a
quarterback,
teaser.
I'll just say this: our quarterback play the last 3 years, it almost didn't matter anything else that was going on with the team. We didn't have a chance to consistently win with the quarterback play we've had the last 3 years. And I think it's almost underappreciated. Even if you think of Geno on more of the low end, is he the 15th, 16th best quarterback? Is he the 7th, 8th best quarterback? Even if you think on the low end, 15th, 16th, it's going to be such a dramatic improvement from what we've had the last few years. And and I'm not going to get into this debate, but I would argue most of the Derek Carr years. You know, I think he's going to have a great year. I think we're going to get the most out of him. I think being reunited with Pete Carroll, better pass protection, better system, all those type of things. And we'll both get into it more in the future. But point being, what I'm trying to say is even on the low end, it's going to be a dramatic improvement, and he's going to give you a chance to win every Sunday.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to take a knee on that because that's a wrap. We're in victory formation. That's a wrap for this episode of the Silver and Black Cast, where the takes are tough, the loyalty is lifelong, and the nation's always watching. So just remember, win, lose, or tie, Raider Nation till we die. Stay bold, stay loud, and stay committed to excellence. Just win, baby.
Just win, babe.
Just win.